I kind of want to do this.
No, 1.
In order to figure out what the ratio is, you're going to take two consecutive numbers and divide backwards.
Okay, so 2, right?
What are you multiplying times? 0.5. 0.5.
Choose their calculator. What a choose.
Wait, no. How
So
did
if you divide this by that, it's 0.5.
Wait.
You
We're
divide
dividing.
backwards.
Oh.
Yeah, go backwards by dividing. You take two consecutive numbers and divide backwards. If you divide those two numbers, you would get 0.5. So I'm multiplying times 0.5.
Yeah.
So if I have 60 and I multiply that times 0.5, what would the next number be?
60.8.
30. Multiply that times 0.5, 15. And if you kept going, 15 multiplied times 0.5 is 7.5.
3.75. Then you get 0.15.
0.15.
I don't know.
No, I don't think that's
Just taking
You
a
get
gander.
0.5.
Yes, Rose.
You get 1.87.
Is you just multiply it by the
Yes. Whatever term you have, you just keep multiplying to create the new pattern. Alright?
Something like that.
So geometric is multiply, divide. Arithmetic is add, subtract.
We're done?
No. This is your formula, just like I boxed the other one. I'm going to box this one. That formula is on the right column of your formula sheet. So we're going to do the exact same things. We're going to solve for a sub n. You have to plug in a sub 1, r, and n into the formula, and that's how you figure it out. Okay? So in this first question, we're trying to find a sub what?
7.
7. Because it says 7th term. Right, so I'm going out 7 spots in the sequence to find a sub n. What's a sub 1?
Negative 256.
What's r? What am I multiplying by?
You gotta just divide those.
We gotta divide the...
Divide backwards. So take two
4.
consecutive numbers and divide backwards.
Negative 4 divided by negative 16.
Uh-huh.
0.25.
0.25. That's my ratio. My common
Minus
ratio is
1.
0.25.
So
And then in the exponent, you should have n minus 1. What's n?
It's the last one. The last one.
No. N
Oh, how many spaces?
1, 2,
is how many spaces you had to go out to get there. So
7.
7. That's a sub n.
Oh.
A is your representation for, they should use T, but they use A instead.
Yeah,
A represents the term. Alright, so in the exponent it should be n minus 1, so what should the exponent be?
6.
6. Stick that in your calculator, find out what the number is.
Before anybody yells it out, please just give me a second.
the answer is...
Alright, so I got it.
Just try it in your calculator and write it down.
Shush. I want to see
Ken,
if I'm doing it right.
Are you doing it on your calculator?
I'm like writing it out first, write it down.
Alright.
Shush!
Oh, no way. Wait, hold on. What you do that?
Dude, your calculator isn't even on.
Oh,
I
that-
can't hear you
oh,
on
minus
GD.
I got a negative out.
Negative 0.0625.
Okay.
You have to
I
figure
got it.
What?
Alright, did everybody get that in their calculator?
No.
No? Yeah.
What is wrong with you
Yup.
guys?
Who said no? I said yup.
That was my
Well, I didn't even say anything.
Okay,
I didn't even do it. Alright, people looking at me. I didn't say shit.
what about the next one? Yeah, you did.
Okay,
Same
so...
thing.
I'm trying to find a sub 12. What's the first term?
It's 0.03125.
Oh my God.
Oh, yo, I don't want to do
Decimal
this.
fraction.
I don't want to do this one.
Too bad.
Ooh, you tell me. I mean,
What's R?
No, Liz, why you put something in your head?
4.
What am I multiplying times to each step of the sequence?
Let's find out, man.
4.
You guys can pick any two numbers. Any two numbers that are consecutive and divide them.
And the
You get
exponent's
4?
going to be 11, right?
Yes.
11.
Because n is 12, you're going out to the 12th term, so you're going 12 spots. That's n. You subtract 1, you get 11. So you would just put that into your calculator.
Is it 4 or 0.4?
It's just 4.
I got 131.
Do 2 divided by 0.5, and you get 4.
I got
Pick the easy
130.
numbers.
Yeah, I was looking for the longest number.
I'm done.
I got 13,000. I got
131,000.
You got what?
131,000.
Yeah.
I got my bank account out there.
No, we're not talking about money. I wish. Alright. Dag, that's what I said.
Dag nabbit.
Alright. The next one is asking for the formula again.
Explicit though.
Why can't it be clean, guys?
Gosh darn it.
Alright, this one, there's the stuff that you didn't like is not here. It's really easy.
So we started with 8.
Oh, I like this one?
Yes, you will like this.
Oh, I already
How
like
you
it.
don't like this one?
Because it doesn't involve the extra steps.
You don't know me like that? Maybe
No.
I don't like this one.
Excuse me.
Well, we'll see after
What
we
is
try
gone?
it.
What is going on?
I really don't know. It's super frustrating.
Why don't we just hit it with a bat if you want?
Because it costs a couple $1,000s.
Okay, and then they buy us a new one. Like, oh.
This is so frustrating.
I know they're not using the money on your computers, so like.
Right.
Look at pictures of your friend. Trying for color. Yeah. I'll try anything at this point.
Please.
Okay. A7.
We do not give into the technology. Use red again.
All we need to do is plug in everything that belongs in the formula, leaving A sub n as the y and n as the x. So what's the A sub 1? 4. What's the r? What's the ratio? 1.5.
1.5. What's you?
And then because n is going to stay a variable, because we can swap out anything that we want for n as the independent variable, you just leave it like that, done. There's no addition, subtraction, there's no distribution, nothing like that, you just leave it like that.
I don't know if I hate that one more.
We're done.
I feel like I hate it more.
So if they're asking for a formula, you just need to write down everything that you know. Do you guys see how we don't know what n is? They haven't specified what n is. That's why n is still a variable and a sub n is still a variable, because they haven't told us.
When is the A sub like?
Hey, so
So is that it?
Yes. They just want the formula. They don't want you to find anything based on it. They just wanted you to write the formula.
You're wrong. I hate that one.
All right. This one,
it's
Oh.
backwards.
you're going to complain about this a lot, but
Yeah,
that's why there's only one. There's only one
I
example.
don't like
Yeah, we're doing it by
I don't
ourselves.
like
The
complaining.
cherry on top. We're doing it by ourselves.
Do you want to do it by yourself?
Get to work.
Yes, we'll take 30 minutes.
No. We're not with them.
No.
I don't know who he
Okay.
is.
Let's do it. Oh, we got our phone set.
What am I looking for?
You're looking for
The
N.
answer, obviously.
I'm looking for n. We have a random number in the sequence. We're trying to figure out how far you have to go to get there. So we're looking for n. How do you think I would approach this?
You know.
If I don't know n, do I do the other stuff? Yeah.
Yes, you got 0.5.
So you gotta do A sub 1, right?
What is that?
I don't know.
0.1, 0.5.
It's 0.5, G.
Okay. So
Okay.
a sub 1 is
0.5.
0.5. Do I know a sub n?
0.5.
A sub n.
Oh, no, we're solving.
No, we're solving for n.
0.5.
What do you?
Yeah,
Oh my
she's taking a
god.
different problem.
No,
The
no.
difference is like.
It's 32,000.
Okay,
Yeah,
right,
the
please,
difference.
guys. Remember I said a sub n is the last number in a finite sequence. They're
Right.
telling us that this is the first one, the second one, blah, 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 and then they're saying you're going up to here and stopping. So it's
That's
like this.
fine.
That's the last turn. This is a sub n.
That's what I said.
She didn't hear you. You was loud, she
Liz, you should take honors.
No.
You would fit
No.
with AP.
That is a sub n.
Y'all have honors, bro. She just call it court.
This is a sub n, so you're going to plug that into the part of the formula where it belongs. And then we know that a sub 1 is 0.5. Do we know the the ratio?
2.
What are you multiplying times each time?
1.
2?
2. Yeah, 2.
And what we don't know is n, so I'm going to leave that blank. Alright, when you guys are looking for one variable, you have to know all the others. So if you know that n is what you're looking for, you have to have all the other things. You just need to look for them in the work or the wording of the question.
And then just solve them.
We're trying to solve for n. What would I do first?
Plus, subtract 0.5.
We'll do
No.
Divide.
Divide.
Silly goose.
Yeah.
Divide by 0.5. I can't remember what that is.
Here's you give me a.
And what did you guys get?
Remember.
You have to.
Wrong.
65,530. No.
65,500.
This starts to look pretty familiar.
Stop that!
Carla and Tiffany know what we're about to do. This should look pretty familiar. Where's the variable?
Is it log? No. No.
I love
Where's
we're
the
doing
variable?
log again.
Where's the variable? It's in the exponent position.
No.
This is an exponential
We gotta
function.
give up.
Counterclockwise wants to
Yo, what kind of sick joke is this?
Okay, so Max asked you a question.
I was like,
What direction should the loop go in?
go that
I was
way.
getting
Clockwise.
This way. You should go from the base towards the other side of the equal sign and then back around. So what's the base for the log?
2.
Log base 2
Something.
Log base 2.
of that really long number.
65536 equals
Oh, wait, don't we
n
divide?
minus 1.
We don't?
We divided the 0.5 away. That's the only division, that's a housekeeping step. You can't divide by 2.
You I didn't even know that.
And then we go log 655.
Then you add 1.
Over log.
No, you add 1 to what?
No,
Yeah.
You don't know what it is yet.
To what?
Yes, we do have another one to it.
Oh, she's gonna go.
No, you don't. You have to log the
Liz, you
You have to
goofy.
log the first one and the second one, right? And then you have to divide them.
She's going against me.
Ooh.
You do the change of base.
Nah, Liz on college course. We should just let
Okay,
her.
sit up.
Lives against the world.
For real.
You guys will get a whole
16.
number. Yep.
Wait, how did you? What did
You,
you do?
you remember when we did, alright, you do log, the big number, and then
Oh,
divide by
yeah.
log, little number,
Yes.
close parentheses,
Yep.
equals.
We did that last unit. Whenever you guys are doing change of base, you take the log of the number on the right and then divide that by the log of the base.
Plus 1.
And equals 17.
17. I'm gonna write this out. Log
17.
5,
That one isn't that bad.
3, 6.
Yeah, it's stuff you guys already know how to do.
And then we add. And then we add 1.
Wait, oh wait, there's more.
No,
Divide.
that's it.
Then we have to add
We'll
1.
double it up.
That's why I wrote
Hold my
17.
arm.
I'm sorry.
Okay?
What's
So
that
again,
figure
listen
about?
up. Whether it's arithmetic or geometric, you'll be looking for one thing and they have to give you everything else. Alright? So if you have 2 things that you're missing, you need to look harder to find the one that you don't have yet in order to plug into the formula. So just make sure you're reading everything really carefully to look for the stuff that you need in order to find the variable that you are ultimately trying to find. Okay? We're going to finish with 2 things here. We're going to use the geometric mean idea, same way as we did before, and then we're going to practice identifying what type of sequence we have just by looking at the numbers. So that's something you're going to need on the homework and the test. Alright, so geometric mean, same thing as before. Please help me write this. Right. Plug a sub 1, a sub n, and n into the formula. It's literally what we just wrote on the other page. So we're trying to find r instead of d. This is r in this one, d in the other one. So you're plugging a sub 1, a sub n, and n into the formula, and then solving for r, the one thing that we don't know, in order to be able to multiply times r to fill in the blanks. Alright, remember for these ones, when you guys have multiple blanks and you don't have consecutive numbers, you cannot divide backwards because they're not consecutive. So this is when we have to fill in the blanks a little bit. So do I know what a sub 1 is?
Yes.
What is it?
-5.
Okay, do I know what a sub n is?
Yes. 625.
It's the number at the end. Remember, we represent the last term in a finite sequence with a sub n. How far did I have to go out to get to a sub n? 4. So what's n?
4.
4.
1.
We have 4 numbers in the sequence.
So 625 equals -5.
So you're going to plug everything to the formula. So a sub n equals -5 times r raised to the what power?
3.
3. Supposed to do n minus 1 since n was 4. 4 minus 1 is 3. Alright, my job is to find r.
Do the 5.
By what?
Do the 5.
Okay, so I would give you -125
Wait, what is R stand for?
ratio.
Ratio and playboy.
Common ratio. Now how do I find r?
You cube root.
Cube root? So it's the cube root of -125.
Something.
I want to say 5, like really bad. Yeah.
Negative. Leave off the sign. It's negative.
I
-5. Alright, so that's what we're going to multiply throughout the sequence. So if I start with -5 and then multiply that times another -5,
-25. Or +25.
positive 25,
125. -125.
and then always double check this last step here. If I multiply times another -5, do I get to the correct number?
625. Shoot.
Okay.
You gotta load it in the back.
Do you guys know how to do roots above a cube root in your calculator?
Yes.
No. Root?
You put the number in and then you hit the X, one with the X thingy.
Yeah.
Very specific.
For those of you who don't know how, I'll have to show you for this one. So, what's a sub 1 in this example?
1,
What's a sub n?
2, 4,
243.
And what's n?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay, so let's plug everything in. So 243 equals 1 times r raised to the 5. Because n minus 1 would be 5. You can write the 1 or not. You don't really need it because it's just a coefficient of 1. So it's really just 243 equals r to the 5th power. So how am I supposed to get r from that?
You have to
You
split
have
5
to-
or the root 5.
Root to the
the
fifth.
fifth root.
Yeah.
And if you guys don't know how to do that in your calculator, you're gonna hit
Oh, isn't it the
5. You're gonna hit 5 first.
5.
5, and then go to math option 5. It has a little x in the place of the index, and then you can type in 243 and push enter.
That's crazy.
Dang, this can't.
You should get 3.
Alright,
I got
I
air.
got 3 points. I got him.
I got air. You're too smart.
you got
You were 643.
Oh, 343. Wrong goofy there.
Alright, hold on. So you
So you
click
just multiply times 3 a bunch of times. For your 83s or the lesser 84s, you guys need to type 5 and then math option 5 and then type in the number you're taking the root of and push enter.
Wait, so you type in
Like for which kind?
5 and then math 5?
Yep.
And 243.
Yep.
For which one?
When you close the parentheses, click enter. I
Yes.
got air.
Wait, for which calculator? I can't even plus. Okay, you can't.
Damn.
Parentheses if you didn't start parentheses, that's why it's.
Yeah, stupid.
Don't put the parentheses
It always
there.
puts the parentheses for me.
No.
Where's my normal factor?
Alright, so what would the next term be?
3, 9, 27, 81.
I got
Basically, just the multiples.
Chill.
You keep multiplying times 3 each time. Oh, sorry, it's the powers of 3, not multiples. Alright, the last thing we're going to talk last thing we're going to talk about is how to identify what kind of sequence you have.
I need my homework.
In the homework, the test, the SOL,
You're gonna fail.
the questions that they're going to give you, it's not going to be all set up where you have just geometric and then just arithmetic.
It's gonna
They're
be
going to say,
mixture.
yeah, and they're going to not tell you what type of sequence it is. They're just going to say, here is a sequence. I want you to find a sub whatever.
So
Or
what?
so, because we have 2 different formulas, one skill you guys need to be able to work with is how to figure out which formula you're supposed to use, which is based on what type of sequence you have.
Ooh, so that,
I think I know.
So-
I
so
think
hold
I
on.
know.
In order to figure if it's arithmetic, what might you do to check?
Divide.
Check the order of
If
the
it's
Arithmetic.
Yeah, if
Oh,
it's positive, negative, or whatever, like it's
Oh, they're all the same.
Listen
Like, sequence addition.
See if a little bit louder.
See if it's addition.
See if you're adding the same thing each time. If you're adding the same thing each time, that means it's arithmetic. How would you know if it's geometric?
like
If you're multiplying by the same thing each time. So what you need to do is see if there's a common difference or ratio between all of the numbers in the sequence, and that's how you figure it out. Okay? So you're going to be comparing all of the consecutive numbers to see what their relationship is. So, what would you have to add to go from 10 to negative 5?
-2. That's multiplied on that.
What would you have to add? No,
negative 15.
negative 15. You'd have to add negative 15 to go from 10 to negative 5. What would you have to add to go from negative 5 to 2.5?
Like positive 7.5?
Yeah, which is not this, right?
It isn't.
Okay, so is it arithmetic?
No.
No, because you're not
You
adding the
think
same
so?
thing. Okay? Now we're going to check, are we multiplying times the same thing? So what do I have to multiply to get to negative 5?
0.2. No, 0.5.
Point
Negative
negative
0.5.
Point, okay? Point, negative 5, the negative version of that. If I multiply again, would I get to the 2.5?
Yeah.
Yeah, so did I multiply times the same thing for each
Yeah,
step?
yeah.
So is this geometric?
Yeah,
Yes, it is.
no.
Are you gonna give us something that say neither? Oh, you're annoying.
That's.
Did you say yes or no?
Yeah. There are some that are neither.
Ah.
Okay, so
I'm gonna just
There's
drop
some-
for this one, am I adding the same thing or multiplying the same thing for each step?
You're adding
Okay, what am I adding in each step?
negative.
Negative 3. You're adding negative 3, so this is arithmetic. It's going to abbreviate.
I just like
Because-
A and G.
That's fine.
Bad.
So because you're adding negative 3 for each step, you have to check every step, by the way. Sometimes it'll be tricky and just have one step that's different, so always be checking all of them.
The next one is adding 1, so it's
Arithmetic.
Yeah, this one's adding 1 each time, so it's going to be
Geometric.
arithmetic.
Arithmetic.
Well, couldn't you just say it's like
Is it with the
a
same
sequence if it's like a negative and a positive and a negative? Couldn't you like?
Well, but you need to make sure they could change signs, but not be multiplying times the same thing. Because you could multiply like times negative 2 and then times negative 3, and they would still alternate signs, but it still wouldn't be the same ratio.
The next one is neither.
Am I adding the same thing between every step? Am I multiplying the same thing?
No.
No.
I'm
That's
sorry,
neither.
none.
You wouldn't be able to do anything with that. There are no
Oh wait, are we doing
formulas.
that last well too? They're gonna have better?
No, I'm just doing it here.
Well, what's wrong with you?
That's me. That's just.
Negative
Yeah.
one.
Yeah,
we know.
Geo,
Why?
on game. What? -1.
What am I multiplying?
-1.
Times -1, so that's geometric, so I'm multiplying -1 each time. So that's the next one.
You're on your own.
Why?
Because like, you can't
Because
add
of
a
God's
same
plan.
number to get like.
Are you hungry, boy? Or -2?
Okay, so you add -2 to go from here to here. How much do you add to go
Oh,
from here to
God.
here?
I tried just pull.
I told you to check every step. 2 of them are adding -2, 1 of them's adding -3.
Oh, what?
You have to check all of them.
Liz, you got that.
Me and Liz are in the same book.
Alright, what about this one?
I don't know.
I'm not going to do that part. Arithmetic.
Why?
Geometric. Geometric.
If you think it's arithmetic or geometric, quiet. If you think it's arithmetic or geometric, you guys have to tell me what it is that you're adding or multiplying by.
1.7.
Oh, you're subtracting -1.7.
You have to talk about it in terms of adding.
You're adding -127.
Remember, you guys find the pattern by subtracting backwards. So if you're trying to see if you're adding the same thing, you can subtract all of the consecutive numbers.
So it's
So it's arithmetic?
Yes.
Arithmetic.
So, arithmetic.
Arithmetic.
The difference between each step is the same. What about the last one?
Air.
Air.
Okay, if you think it's arithmetic, what are you adding each
Oh,
time?
no, I was actually just talking about the last one.
Oh, okay. Well, the actual last one here.
So you gotta multiply by.
It's 0.1. Multiply times 0.1. So, geometric.
This would be geometric. Again, to check to see if you're actually multiplying times the same thing each time, take every set of consecutive numbers and divide backwards to make sure that they all have the same ratio.
Okay. I actually write that right. Full. That's wild.
Guess what?
Pardon myself. Yep.
Alright, so you guys have your formulas.
We have our-
Before we move on,
Wait,
everybody
Miss
take a look
Cat,
at
you
the
didn't
formulas.
answer. Do you fully understand this lesson?
That's your job to answer that
No,
question.
but like you have it too. Robert, you answer that.
I understand. You have to say.
I